What's up guys, my name is Ace, and welcome back to another gun guide. This is the series where I go into great detail with all of the stats as well as some excellent attachment combinations for every gun in Modern Warfare 2. And in today's episode, we're going to be moving on to the FSS Hurricane, also known as the AR-57. And starting it off as always, let's have a look at our damage profile, and with this gun, we get a 3 to 6 shot kill, although we can get a 7 shot kill with limb shots at really long ranges. But generally speaking, it's going to be a 3 to 6 shot kill. However, just like with the Vaznev 9K, this isn't very forgiving with that 3 shot kill. You have to hit every single bullet to the torso. The moment you mix a limb shot in, it's now going to take you 4 shots to kill. As for headshots, just like with most of the SMGs in this game, the headshot multiplier isn't enough to really make much of a difference, and as a result, I generally wouldn't bother going the extra mile to try to hit a headshot. Then getting into our rate of fire, this is just under 700 rounds per minute, and what this means is our 3-shot time to kill potential is 172 milliseconds, and while that's not the fastest in the game, that is still an incredibly fast and competitive time to kill. But then it does drop off to about 260 milliseconds with a 4-shot kill, and that's no longer super competitive. I mean, you can get by with a time to kill like that in this game, but you are going to be outgunned by many of the other guns in the game, assuming you're both hitting your shots. After that, let's move on to bullet velocity, and we have an incredible bullet velocity with this gun, especially for an SMG at 680 meters per second. This is faster than all of the assault rifles in the game, and it's more along the lines of a marksman rifle, so bullet velocity should never be an issue for you with this gun. After that though, let's get into our ranges, and unfortunately, our 3-shot kill range with this gun isn't very good at right around 8 meters. It's actually slightly less than 8 meters. This is the shortest maximum damage range out of any of the SMGs out there, so you have to be practically point blank to get that 3-shot kill potential. But our 4-shot kill range does extend out to 19 meters, which is pretty standard for that second damage range drop-off. And then our 5-shot kill range is actually quite impressive for an SMG at about 33 meters, and then we have another damage drop-off at around 44 meters. However, it's still going to have a 6-shot kill potential beyond that. You just have to make sure you're hitting at least 4 out of your 6 shots to the torso. Next up, let's have a look at our hipfire spread, and no surprises here, this is just standard for an SMG. And then let's get into our idle sway, and as we can see here with this gun, honestly for an SMG this doesn't seem all that bad, and that's good news if you decide to stretch the ranges out with this gun. Now, more importantly, let's have a look at our recoil, and keep in mind we are firing 50 rounds here rather than the normal 30. But the big thing I noticed with the recoil on this gun is there isn't a whole lot. It kicks basically straight up, there's a little bit of a zigzag there and some side-to-side bounce, but for the most part this is pretty easy to predict and control. However, when I play that clip again of me actually shooting at the wall, it looks like there is so much more recoil than there actually is. It looks like your sights are bouncing side to side like crazy and that you would see quite a big spread between those bullets, but that's not the case. So this is one of those guns where you just kind of have to trust the recoil pattern and not really focus too much on your iron sights, assuming you are using iron sights. After that though, let's move on to our handling stats, and the Hurricane does have more of an assault rifle level aim down sight time at 240 milliseconds. This is still very reasonable, but it is slower than a lot of the other SMGs out there. However, our sprint out time is standard for an SMG and quite good at 110 milliseconds. And then let's get into our reload add time. This is unfortunately the slowest in the SMG category by a noticeable margin as well, at 2.33 seconds. So that is a big downside with this gun, and you probably want to be combining this with the fast hands perk. And finally, for the base stats of this gun, let's get into mobility, and unfortunately, the Hurricane has the slowest movement speeds across the board for the SMG category. Although it's still generally faster than an assault rifle, it does seem to sort of fill that SMG assault rifle hybrid role. So that is something to be aware of with this gun. It's not quite as well suited as many of the other SMGs at getting to certain positions faster or strafing really quickly in a gunfight. So there we go, those are the base stats of the FSS Hurricane. Now let's get into the barrel stats with this, and we only have 2 barrels. Let's start this off with our ranges, and it was very interesting, that first barrel that you have, this one has an integrated suppressor, and it says that it increases your damage range. However, based on my testing, this increase is literally 1.5%, so a negligible change to your damage range here. I don't know if they misplaced a decimal or if it's actually only supposed to have a 1.5% improvement to your range, but just know that's effectively meaningless. Whereas the second barrel, that 16-inch barrel, this one does give us a 20% boost across the board to our damage ranges, and that's really nice to see. That's definitely a noticeable improvement. As for how these barrels impact our recoil, it seems like both of them actually have more side-to-side bounce to them as they're kicking upward. However, our total magnitude of recoil is reduced with both of these barrels. And also, it seems like there's less chance for that horizontal recoil to take over, like we see with the right-hand recoil plot with the base recoil. So you're going to see a bit more consistency there where it kicks mainly straight vertically, but more side-to-side bounce to deal with. And then finally for our barrel stats, let's have a look at how they impact our aim down sight speed. And it looks like they both have roughly the same impact, at least based on hand testing. And both of them will slow your aim down sight speed to around 300 milliseconds. So quite a noticeable reduction, but depending on what you combine that with, these still may end up being reasonable for you. And with that, normally we'd cover magazine stats, but there are no magazine attachments for this gun. So let's just dive into some great attachment combinations that I've got for you guys. And the first one I want to share is my preferred setup, my all-arounder setup with the FSS Hurricane. And with this, I did a bunch of testing with different combinations of muzzles as well as underbarrel grips. And the best combination that I personally found for this gun was the Bruin Pendulum muzzle as well as the Edge 47 grip. And I did want to address this really quickly here because sometimes I see people saying, I thought this underbarrel was better, or I thought this muzzle was better. Every gun seems to have a different optimal combination of those two attachments if you are combining them. And keep in mind, I do a lot of recoil testing. I test various combinations, and I always just give you guys the optimal one that I've found with my testing. So there isn't necessarily a one-size-fits-all underbarrel or a one-size-fits-all muzzle. But after that, we also have the OLEV laser. I really like that laser for aiming stability as well as aim down sight speed and sprint out time. We've got the armor-piercing ammo for this, which is excellent as well, because we can afford to lose a little bit of bullet velocity with this. And then finally, we have the X10 rear grip, and this one helps with aim down sight speed as well as sprint out time. And when you look at the recoil with this particular setup, it's very solid. Definitely very noticeably better than the base recoil. You can be quite accurate with this. You can stretch your range out pretty effectively. And the great thing about this is right up close and personal in that 3-shot kill range, you're competitive with the other SMGs out there. However, if you try to stretch those ranges out, you're fairly competitive even against assault rifles in this game. So that actually makes this a fairly versatile gun. However, I wouldn't say it really dominates in any particular area. It's just pretty good at everything. As for the next build that I've got for you guys, this one's a much more niche build. I wanted to share a Hipfire build with this, largely because we just get a great magazine capacity by default without having to sacrifice any sprint to fire time or anything like that. And with this, we're using the FTAC Grimline laser, the TV Wrecker grip, the hollow point ammo for that crippling chance if you hit them in the leg, the Demo Quicksilver collapsible stock, and the Phantom rear grip. With this, obviously, we're not building for recoil, so when you look at the recoil plot, this is ridiculous. You obviously don't want to be stretching your range out at all with this setup, although you could still aim down sight in like close to somewhat medium ranges and still be at least somewhat viable. However, the main benefits here are an incredibly fast sprint out speed at 60 milliseconds, so it's nearly instant coming out of sprint, which is great. Even coming out of attack sprint, you're going to be getting that shot off quite quickly, which is great for Hipfire build. And also, our hipfire diameter is reduced by 33%, which is a great reduction. And I just find this is quite an effective build at hipfiring. You can also snap into aiming down sight really quickly if you need to, so I'd hipfire into aiming down sight in a lot of situations. But that's just an alternative build I wanted to share for you guys that doesn't have nearly as much versatility as the previous one. And with that, that's gonna wrap it up for today's gun guide on the FSS Hurricane. As for my thoughts on this gun, I always consider it to be a good but not great SMG. Like, I can perform really well with it, I enjoy using it from time to time, but I feel like, especially at those mid-ranges for SMGs, it's simply outclassed by most of the other SMGs in the game, and even many of the assault rifles. But it's still very competitive in super close ranges, and you can stretch the range out quite nicely, largely due to the recoil of this gun. And I also really like the added benefit of having that higher bullet velocity, as well as a large default magazine capacity. So that's my thoughts on it overall, but I'd love to hear what you guys think about the FSS Hurricane in the comments down below. And also, if you guys have missed any of the previous episodes, I will leave a link to the playlist in the description of the video. If you enjoyed the video, a like rating is always appreciated, and don't forget to subscribe for more if you haven't already. I'll talk to you guys next time.